Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I got an interesting build for you guys today. I say that every single video, but this patch just came out. This is kind of a theory crafting build. I'll admit I have not been able to play this myself yet, but I did get to fight against something like this, which showed me that it is viable and got my wheels turning. So I'm calling this build the Jagdtiger. If you don't know what the Jagdtiger is, Google it. It's a version of the Tiger tank from World War II. It's a big ass tank killer, right? So what this build is, fuck man, this build is ridiculous. And I'm just like smiling thinking about how dumb this is going to be. Before I start talking about it, let me shout out the website. If you haven't seen the website yet, go to mo2builds.com. If you don't know, we added necromancy. So you can go in here and you can click on any of these spells and actually figure out and see what the mana cost is, what the reagents are, what it does, and have a video demonstration. So kind of proud. Been working on the website, guys. It's just a resource for all you guys. I hope it's useful. Anyways, that's the website. So I like to shout that up. But let's talk about the Jagdtiger and what it is, right? So brief story. What happened to me? I was out on my Dark Archer. I was playing it kind of like an Arcane Archer. It was full build. I had pierce rings. So, kind of like the pinnacle of mounted builds. And I came across a guy who was riding on a black bear. Black bear had armor on. I believe it was steel. It's hard to tell because it's a bug right now. We got in a fight. Fight went back and forth for a little while. I couldn't kill him. He couldn't kill me. Eventually he got lucky with a dismount and killed me. What struck me as very interesting is my arrows with pierce rings were hitting for 16 damage. I was using all of the best stuff, dense crepite short bow, full stats, full everything, and I was hitting for 16 damage. Well, if you don't know, black bears, and all bears in general, have an inherent pierce resistance like a lot of other animals. So now, with this bear armor in the game, it stacks. You also couple that with the black bear having 621 health, and you can kind of see where I'm going with this. So I thought to myself, how could I really min-max this, right? And this is theory crafting. Like I said, you could do this on a human, you could do this on a Thursar, but I chose Oghmir for a couple reasons. So number one is this is a min-height Oghmir. If you don't want to go min-height, okay. Don't lead into the meme as much as I am, but this build is very tight from a point perspective and from a mana perspective, and I wanted to achieve a couple goals. I wanted to be able to wear steel armor with a tower shield for the memes and a lance, and I also wanted to be able to heal my mount. I almost said horse. It's not a horse. It's a fucking bear. I want to be able to heal that, and then I also want to be able to foot fight if I have to. So I had to give up on some things. Notably, I don't have ecumenical above 30, so I don't even get the chance to spell reflect. I don't have mounted magery. I don't have clubs at 100. Now you could tweak this, right? But to get a black bear into this build, you have to put up a lot of points. You have full creature control, full advanced creature control, and then to get magic so that you can dismount quickly, re-heal your bear, or even heal it while riding it for half the value. To do that, I had to get mental combat, or mental offense, mental training, which is another 200 points, right? So I needed to figure out where I could pull these points from, and Oghmir allows me to do a lot of those things cheaper. So the only way that I'm going to get steel with a tower shield while mounted is with the Oghmir armor clades. So that alone is one big reason. They also have the stone skin protection, so I'm running around without defensive stance. This is like a pseudo defensive stance, so that's great. And then I've got the free clubs points so that I can just still have some points. I have like 30% of my total value of clubs right there. And you have the highest strength in the game as well, so you have a decent melee damage bonus even though you're a min-height character. And then they're more flexible than a Thursar in the intelligence department, because if you wanted to convert this later on and make this into a full mage, you can get reasonable intelligence on the character. So that's why I went with Oghmir. You could totally do this on a human. You could do it on a Thursar as well, just to a lesser extent. This is just what I think is important. Oh, and the other thing that most people don't think about is the knockdown percentage. Because this build is so tight and I needed to figure out where I'm going to pull these points from, I couldn't afford to put balance into the build. So knockdown, 15% chance to avoid being knocked down is like pseudo balance as well. So you're getting a lot of different value from being an Oghmir that you might not think of initially when you start thinking of the character. This character has 211 health, has 91 mana, which is enough for, I don't know, like 30 lesser heals. Runs at 390 combat movement speed, so you're as slow as a fat mage when you're on foot. It's not unplayable, is what I'm saying. If you can go into a dungeon with your boys, Oghmirs are already slow. Nobody's expecting you to be a Hot Wheel, so you can just still stay in the front line and hold the front line. You can wear full steel with this tower shield if you have a free armor weight trinket of 9% or better. If you don't have the free armor weight trinket, you can just run like a small tower shield or something like that and just reduce the weight and still run this build in steel. You're basically unkillable from a physical perspective on horseback. Magic might be the other side of things, and when I was fighting this guy out in the wild, I started to realize I need to like fulminate his bear to death. Like I cannot kill this thing with arrows. So if you fight like a legit mounted archer, it is going to be almost impossible for them to kill your bear out from under you. I started shooting him instead, and he was wearing good armor, so I was like, it is so frivolous for me to try and kill this bear right now that I need to start killing him, or I need to start blowing his bear up with magic. Those are the only ways that you're going to really get dismounted, that and Earthquake. And I admittedly lost the fight because I played stupidly. Like I was just really kind of experimenting to see what I could get away with, and he did. He punished me. He got a good lance in and killed me. So let's talk about action skills real quick. I already talked about it a little bit. I'm compensating or giving up points in clubs to get full on lances. You could flip that if you care more about being effective on foot. I had to give up some points in mental offense. I had to give up some points in mental training. If you can find a necklace that has these things on it, or even aggressive or defensive stance, all that stuff is great. So keep an eye out for a big stat like an action skill necklace, and that has free armor weight, obviously, and then percent-based defenses are also great. For the professions, one thing that I would really, really recommend here is being able to make your own lances. Lances are hard to come by. Almost nobody uses them, and there's very few crafters that make them because they're very expensive from a profession standpoint. So just make sure that you have everything you need to do lances. I would also recommend horse armor, horse equipment, because the way you make bear armor right now, even though it's not supposed to be in the game, is by using the crafting bench. That's all I'm going to say. So Star Vault has said that it's not supposed to be in the game. They just said today they don't know what they're going to do about it. They've said that they were going to take legacy items out of the game. When they talked about shields, didn't happen. They talked about equerries, didn't happen. Priests, didn't happen. So is this going to get taken out of the game? If I had to bet, I'd say no. So get some good bear armor. You can find somebody to make that for you if you don't. And then just go ham. Like, this build is probably more geared towards a veteran player. I wouldn't say this is a beginner-friendly build because it is somewhat expensive and somewhat time-consuming. So, you know, it is a meme as well. I mean, like, this is... you're going to be the shortest character in the game on the smallest mount in the game with the most health in the game, hitting pretty damn hard because like, it's going to be pretty situational, guys. Don't expect this to be like a Giga Chat ultra crazy build, right? But it is cool. Like, it is cool. Like, come on, you're riding a fucking bear with a lance. Like, the rule of cool applies here. You're rolling artillery. Alright. So, let's see. I like how this is all messed up. Whatever. Alright, PvP. We're going to save that till later. Going in F tier till now. We'll put it down here so I don't forget. Alright, PvE. Like, where would I put this build for PvE? Oh, it's pretty bad, guys. I mean, you're an Oghmir tank. You can go do PvE content and be the tank. You can rock solid kill bandits, but mounted combat in PvE is generally useless. You don't have any mounted archery skills. You don't even have archery to begin with. You're going to be stuck in melee. Your clubs are low. It's kind of a meme. Like, I'd put it down here for PVE. For dueling, it's like below average just because you don't have enough points for your clubs. I'd even put it down here. It's kind of a meme. Like, you have way too much dedicated to your pets and stuff like that for it to be a good duelist build. 1v1. 1v1 is like fighting to the death. Dueling is like dueling in town. 1v1, this is like fighting all other builds in the game. And if you're out in the open world in an ideal situation on your bear, you're more or less unkillable, guys. Like, I don't think you guys understand. I mean, the only thing you don't really have is mounted magery, so healing yourself through consistent pressure might be difficult. But that's not that hard to get. Like, you could figure out someplace else in the build to get it. Maybe you pull points from lances to get, 50 points of mounted magery. It's just spitballing. But, like, if you're out in an ideal situation, there's a lot of builds that just won't be able to touch you. Like a mounted archer, like a dedicated physical damage mounted archer, they're not going to be able to do anything to you at all. Mages out in the open world, so mounted mages, you're going to have a pretty good chance of killing them. The only time you're really going to struggle is if it's like a hybrid, like an arcane archer or a dark archer or something like that, something that's like fully dedicated to the mounted lifestyle. You might have problems with that. You can still get a cheeky lance like what happened to me and get a W that way. But out in the open world, it's going to be pretty hard for you to die. So I'd say it's pretty high up there. I'd say it's like B or A tier for the 1v1 to the death. In 1vx, I'd say it's also right there. If you're out in the open world, you're riding your bear, it's a high level bear, like you've done your due diligence and your prep work to go out with a good kit, it's going to be pretty damn hard to knock you out, right? Your bear has some of the best burst speed in the game. You're not going to have infinite stamina. Like, horses will be able to outpace you, but you probably have enough durability to limp yourself to safety, whether it's a town or some kind of shelter, or to your friends. Like, it's going to take so much to knock you out and knock you off this mount. Solo play, I can't even imagine. Like, okay, so I'm putting myself in the shoes of an Oghmir. It's going to be terrible for solo play. Like, Oghmirs are known for being team fighters. They're known for being support character type, like hold the front line. They don't really get to do too much magic. This build is kind of a meme, so it's really not that good. For team fights, I think this would be actually kind of fucking off the chain. But offense, we'll put up here. Like I said, if you're on your bear and you're doing mounted damage, it's pretty good. It's probably like A tier. You're not going to be hitting like super, super hard because you're a min-height character and you don't have the offensive, aggressive stance type stuff, but you still would hit pretty damn hard. Defense is like fucking S tier. If you're on your bear's not going to get killed unless it gets blown up by like multiple mages. Mages have to cast in a straight line. You can turn. So basically, if you're fighting a mounted mage, all you really have to do to survive is as soon as they start casting, turn and go the other way. And then if they commit to their cast, by the time they get the spell in the pocket, you're miles away from them and they can't even gap close you to get the spell off. So if you really understand, some of my advice that I give a lot of newer players is, if you play a human or something like that and you play a bunch of different builds, you're going to be a much better player. If you know how a mounted mage plays and what their goals are in a fight, you know how to play against it. So just turning and driving away from them as soon as they start casting will generally keep you in a pretty safe spot. And if they overcommit to you, you can turn and lance them and potentially knock them off. And mages don't really wear heavy armor. Team fights, I'd put this in S tier. I mean, you're still an Oghmir in steel with a tower shield. You can hold the front line. Nobody's looking for you to do huge damage. But if it is an open world fight, the ability to go into the back line and just harass the ever-living shit out of mages on an Oghmir is pretty much unprecedented at this point. Like, nobody has really done that because it's not really a thing. Like, some people have done it, but it's really not a thing. Now that I can have a bear that has an unholy amount of health plus inherent defense plus lances, and I'm ultra small, like all of that stuff combined would just make you an absolute nuisance in the backline. Your job during like an open world team fight would be to just look for the squishies and just eviscerate them, right? This would be super nice to have. Money, like how expensive is the kit? It's like F tier. You have to have a max level pet, expensive. You need to run steel, expensive. Steel tower shield, expensive. You need to be able to make your own lances, which is annoying and expensive. You need to have mage reagents. Like, it's not any crazy mage rigs, but like, oh, and you need steel bear armor with iron fur. Like, it's kind of the most expensive you can get. It's short of like maybe the raid boss build where you're running like a really expensive pet. So yeah, pretty good. If you can run heavier bear armor as well, do so. Like Oghmir would kind of be like the best because you don't lose stam in 4th gear anymore or in 3rd gear, so you can putz around the map and still have a full stam bar to sprint with. So maybe try that. I think heavier is generally better in my mind right now. Utility, like like I don't know. I want to say it's pretty high. I mean, it's B tier, right? You're not like a dedicated mage in any way. You can basically heal and corrupt. That's all you're doing from the mage front. But you have a lot of mounted skill and the capability to go backline, and you're very durable. So utility is like, I'd say it's above average, but it's nothing. It's nothing crazy. Skill cap, fuck. Skill cap, like S would be like super easy to get value from every single time. Even for a noob, F would be like really hard to learn, really hard to get value from. I'd say this is probably A tier because Oghmir is one of the most noob-friendly races to begin with because you're so durable, and this is taking. You could pretty easily convert a meta Oghmir into this by just lowering the dex, switching a couple skills around, reading a couple mage books. You don't even need to read them like fully because you're capping a lot of things at 80 or 30 for ecumenical. So the transfer of knowledge and reroll would be pretty easy. You could probably like do this build for a weekend just for the fucking memes. Really, yeah. Advanced creature control is probably the most annoying thing. So learning how to do this is probably not that hard either, right? You also have crack pipes too, which I haven't even talked about. Crack pipes are fucking insane. For uptime, I'd put this like below average. Uptime, what I mean by that is how often do you have dead stats? So if you don't have your bear, that's a bunch of dead stats. That's like 180 dead stats. If you don't have whatever weapon you have out, the other weapon is dead stats. If you don't have your tower shield, you got dead stats there. So there's like a lot of room for dead stats. But if you're playing this type of build, you should be playing it with all the equipment that you need. Otherwise, the build, like, what's the point? Crafting, this is like the worst. Oghmir's, yeah, you have some intelligence on this build. You're at like 70 or 80 or something. But from a crafting perspective, you're pigeonholed into making your own lances, which really does take up a lot of points. Almost all of your points, and then you also got to make your bear armor. So it's going to be somewhat expensive from the crafting perspective, and you're really stuck making the stuff that you need because that type of stuff, bear armor's all over the market right now today, but it's probably not going to be that way for forever. And it's the things that are really essential to your build would be a lance and bear armor, and if those are scuffed, you're not going to be able to do shit. So you kind of have to make them for yourself or risk your build being worthless. So that's why crafting is kind of F tier. For fun, I'm theory crafting here, but I think this would be fun as shit. I'll put it in B tier, maybe even A tier. I played against it and it was fun to fight against, so I imagine it'd be fun to play. Because you're like a little fucking, it's like the hardest thing to kill in the game. Zipping around, going super fucking mock Jesus with a giant lance. And just, yeah, I imagine seeing big numbers, right? You get to see a bunch of big numbers. PvP, this one's kind of difficult, guys. Like, it really depends on the situation. If you're in a dungeon, I would say it's like D tier. Maybe, no, it's like C tier. It's really hard to say on Oghmir's bad. It's really slow. It's gimped in a lot of ways compared to a full meta Oghmir. But if you're out in the open world and you're playing this build the way that it would be meant to be played, I'd say it's like probably B tier overall. Maybe even A tier, right? This is pretty cool. This build might be something that you want to consider for transporting items. So if you wanted to go more mage centric, more mage focus, and dump a little bit of the heavy armor training, maybe you don't want to run a tower shield and stuff like that, there are ways that you can run this build and make it so hard to kill you, right? So hard to kill you. I've seen people run similar builds before bears were even a thing. And Kite, there was one specific example where my friend was playing an Oghmir, a mounted Oghmir version, and he kited like 20 Kodo halfway across the map, just healing his horse and healing himself, to the point where some of them had run out of arrows and had to swap to their melee weapons with no mounted combat skill to try and kill him. So if you're in the business of transporting gold or resources from objective A to objective B, this might be a really good build for that. You're the one that everybody puts the loot on, and you hightail it out of there as soon as somebody shows up. Also, the other thing that's kind of cool from the utility perspective is you have enough creature control to run a lot of like decent pets. So if you don't want to use the bear, let's say you want to use a Molva, like fucking go for it, right? You don't have Beastmaster, so you're not going to like use them to their full capability. But if you really want to tailor to be the guy that carries the loot or whatever, I mean, it would be really, really hard to take down a Molva that has steel on. Especially since you're so small and you're so high up, like earthquaking you would also be a challenge. That'd be one of the only ways that you can reliably get knocked off your mount. For overall, I'd say this is middle of the road, guys. Like I said before, it's kind of a meme build. It's something that just snapped into existence out of nowhere. Didn't expect to make this build. I'd been thinking about something like this for a while, but didn't expect to make it today. It just so happens that they accidentally released bear armor without knowing it. So I will do Dark Archer next. I know you guys voted for that. I appreciate that. That will be the next one on the agenda. But I just really wanted to kind of jump in and talk about this because I did think it was kind of funny, kind of cool, and I think you guys would enjoy it. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a good rest of your night.
Here to spit some rhymes, so get ready to see. We got a story, about to give that straight up. They called Koto, and they can't handle the beef. Their leader, Kufo, he's scared to throw down. Only fights when he knows his guild's got the crown. Pussy-ass tactics, always playing it safe. His own guildies know he's a disgrace. Koto's a joke, they run to the guards. Anytime there's a fight, they playing it hard. Cowan and fear in the desert city of Medulla. They can't handle the heat, better get in the freezer because Kufo, you a weak leader, you can't hang. Your guildies know the truth, they ain't gonna bang. Koto's reputation is in the trash. Nobody fears you, you're just a bunch of whack-ass. So step up your game or step to the side. Koto, you ain't got nothing to hide. We see right through you, you ain't nothing but a joke. Better man up or your guild's gonna go broke.
Humans, they have been dark shit for a long